One of the best ways to boost and even multiply your positive emotion is anticipation. Anticipation is actually a happiness trigger, but are you doing enough of it? Here's the thing. If you don't have something to look forward to, it's time to create something. Coming up next on the Successful Women Think Differently podcast, I'm going to give you 5 ways to build your anticipation and create more joy in your life. One of the ways that successful women think differently is they're really, really intentional about cultivating positive emotion, because positive emotion, as I say over and over again, is a success strategy. It literally helps you to think better, be more creative, make better decisions, set better goals. There are all types of wonderful things that come with positive emotion. It even helps you live longer. And so when I wrote Happy Women Live Better, which was a spinoff from Successful Women Think Differently, I talked about these 13 research-based happiness triggers, things that we know automatically build positive emotion if you're intentional about cultivating them. And one of my favorites is anticipation. Anticipation is just positive expectation about the future, about things that are about to happen. And you can create it on purpose. You know, a lot of times we can find ourselves in a bit of a rut. Maybe you feel bored. Maybe nobody's been inviting you to stuff. Maybe there's not a lot going on that feels exciting. But I want you to think of that as an invitation. If you're bored, it's an opportunity. If you don't have something to look forward to, what could you actually create? A lot of times what exists in our lives is a lack of planning. We haven't really thought through, like, what do I want to do next? Or how could I make it happen? Sometimes it's overwhelming because maybe you've got a lot of things going on and you feel like, well, I don't have the time. But if you stopped and you became intentional about how you were scheduling things, I bet you could find the time. And it's not always about creating the big things, although things like a great vacation certainly can be a way to build anticipation, because you can get, as much positive emotion out of planning and anticipating the vacation as you get out of the vacation itself. But it's also about those little things. It's about what you're going to do this evening. Have you planned a phone call or a get together with someone that you love? Are you taking a walk? Are you watching your favorite show? What are you doing on an everyday basis that allows you to build positive emotion? And so if we're not intentional, we can find ourselves doing the same thing again and again and feeling like we don't have anything to look forward to. It's absolutely essential that you be intentional about building interest in your life, novelty, like those new things that you do. That's a great way to build anticipation, and just being intentional. In fact, back in the summer in July, our theme inside my membership, the Successful Women's Academy, was around adventure, like literally creating adventure, whether it's adventure right here where you are or starting to plan your own adventures. This is how we create a life that feels more interesting and more engaging, where we have something that we're looking forward to. It gives us a sense of hope, a sense of excitement. It's something that we talk about and we begin dreaming about and imagining. And all of that is a way of savoring the future. Savoring produces that positive emotion as we're imagining ourselves there. So here's what I invite you to do. This is going to be quick because I want you to use it ASAP, like right away, to start building more positive emotion. First, just have this declaration for yourself. Every day, I have something to look forward to. Every day. It could be something small, like I'm thinking about how I'm going to play with my son on the trampoline when I'm done recording this podcast because it's after school time and that's something that he loves to do. And so it just becomes our bonding time, right? Whether he wants me to go out there and kick the soccer ball with him or jump on the trampoline or do whatever. That's our quality time. And when I think about it, when I think about what that feels like for me, it builds anticipation. and the positive emotion naturally comes. So this is part of the power of being intentional in your positive emotion. So here's how to do it. Very simple. I'm going to take this straight from the book, Happy Women Live Better. Number one, set a goal. Goals don't have to be huge in order to build anticipation. But what we know from the research is it's just about impossible to be happy without goals. Your goal doesn't have to be to conquer the world, but you need to have some kind of an aim. So your goal could be, I'm going to jog 10 miles this week, or next year we're going on our dream vacation, wherever that is, or in 5 years, I'm going to be completely out of debt. Like when you set meaningful goals with a reasonable timeline and you begin imagining yourself there, just the act of imagining yourself in your goal and in your vision activates that anticipation happiness trigger. So think about one of your goals right now, something that is meaningful for you, something you're actively working towards, and imagine yourself there. Anticipate what it's going to feel like. That positive expectation of what it will be like to be in that goal. Now, these can be small goals too. Like I said, it might just be something you're going to do this evening or this weekend. Having something to look forward to is about having something every day, something every week, something every season. If you're entering a new season of your life in some way, you want to be thinking about what you're looking forward to about that new season. That produces anticipation, which then boosts your positive emotion and shifts how you're feeling about entering that new season. So, number one, set a goal. If you don't have one, set one and begin imagining yourself in the goal in anticipation and positive expectation of what is going to happen. Secondly, make a list of simple pleasures. This is so easy. So I think this is probably the easiest way to activate anticipation. So one of the problems that happens is when we're trying to come up with things that we could do, we feel like we have to come up with ideas right on the spot. But instead, if you just set aside a few minutes and just make a list of simple pleasures. One of the things that Jeff and I have done is we have a list of things that we might like to do when we have time. And we just created a jar. That's our anticipation happiness trigger jar. And whenever we think of simple pleasures, we write them on small pieces of paper. We put them in the jar. When it's a day when we have extra time, we can actually pull them out of the jar. So when you think ahead about simple pleasures, then what you're doing is that when you actually have the time, you might say, oh, this weekend we've got time, you can pull those out. What's your fun list? What's the thing that you might enjoy doing? You don't always have time, but if you've thought ahead of time, you've made your list, you can look at your list, and then for the next few days, as you look forward to the weekend or you look forward to when you have time, you can actually anticipate and boost that positive emotion. Of course, that's true even if you figure it out this morning and it's something you're going to do this evening. It's all about just being intentional. Number 3, you want to activate your anticipation happiness trigger. Talk about it. Whatever it is you're going to do, don't keep the excitement to yourself. So when you think about what you're most looking forward to, share it with a friend. Talk about why it's meaningful to you. Verbalize what it's going to feel like when that moment comes, right? Even again, if it's something simple, like a favorite show. Maybe you're going to binge watch this weekend and it's like, you know what? I have been doing so much. I've been feeling stressed. It's going to feel good to just lay there, get my popcorn, get my favorite drink, not have to do anything but sit there and be entertained. In fact, I'm even going to get my favorite blanket and my favorite slippers. Like you start thinking about what it's going to feel like. You actually start feeling good about the fact that you're doing something for yourself, a bit of self-care, something that's fun, that feels playful. So talk about it. Talking about it stirs up that positive emotion. 4, add to the joy. All right. So when you're intentional and you start talking about what you're looking forward to, there's something fun that happens. And that is that you start to think about how you could make the moment even more meaningful. Like maybe you invite someone to join you, or you incorporate some other happiness triggers to multiply the effect, right? So maybe it's something that you've never done before, which would be novelty, which is actually a happiness trigger, having something new, right? A new class, a new experience, right? Or maybe you surprise somebody in need with something that's really going to bless them and you savor their reaction, right? So you're using the happiness trigger of service. You're looking forward to what you're going to do, and you're helping somebody in the process. So get creative about adding to the joy and finding a way to multiply that feeling of positive emotion. And then here's number 5. This is fun. This might be one of my favorites. Count it down. Like if it's a big something that you're looking forward to, have a countdown. All right. You remember when you were a kid and you remembered how you knew how many days were left until school was out or until Christmas break? A lot of the fun was in the countdown, and the same is true when it comes to anticipation. So, for example, when we're planning a vacation, I have a countdown. I'll just get like a little whiteboard that we sit in the kitchen, and every single day I'm counting down. It's like, okay, 71 days, 45 days, and everybody is knowing, okay, this is our countdown. We did this for spring break this year. I do it every year in my countdown to Christmas. We actually count down. We have these little blocks that count down, and every single day I change them out because I look forward to that. I look forward to how we celebrate as a family. I look forward to all the things we do during the holidays. But when you count down to what you are looking forward to, it's a way to stay reminded that something good is on the horizon, something that you're looking forward to. It gets you talking about it, gets you thinking about it. This is so simple. And that's what makes it, I think, so special. You can cultivate positive emotion very intentionally. We've talked about some of the ways before. We just a few weeks ago did the podcast on play with Dr. Elaine O'Brien about being intentional about cultivating positive emotion through play. Anticipation is another way to do it, and it's so easy. So I'm wondering, what are you looking forward to? What's on the horizon? Later today? This week, this season, maybe even next year? Be intentional about it. When I talk about why it's so important to grow in order to go where you're trying to go, I'm talking about these simple things. And over again, I love talking about positive emotion because we need it. I know that oftentimes you're dealing with stress, you're dealing with things that are beyond your control. You might be dealing with negative thoughts, doubts that are coming your way about goals you're wanting to reach. And one of the things that I know is that since that negative emotion can be more powerful than positive, we have to be intentional about cultivating positive emotion intentionally. And when there's a simple way to do it, I encourage you, do it. Activate your anticipation happiness trigger and notice how it shifts how you feel. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the Successful Women Think Differently podcast. And remember, how far you go is largely determined by how much you're willing to grow. I'll talk to you next time.